Hi guys, I am back with a video that may not interest a lot of you. I just felt like when I got pregnant, I felt like there really wasn't any sort of videos out there that I could find that discussed, there was a lot of videos about how people felt in the first trimester and whatnot, but there wasn't really a lot of videos with resources for books and things that were really helpful during pregnancy and childbirth. So I would like to, as this is a book channel, discuss some books that I've been reading, what I have and haven't enjoyed out of those books as well. So I thought I'd just do a little video about that for anyone that may stumble, search it in YouTube or stumble upon my channel and happens to be pregnant at the same time or plans on having a child or whatnot. So I thought I would just put this together for you all. So here we go. First of all, there are a lot of books out there that aren't great, and they are sort of the most popular and highly marketed books, most easily accessible books for pregnant people. One of them is Up the Duff by Kaz Cook. Horrible cover, clearly, come on. I know it's probably supposed to be a bit of a joke, but it's just, it looks like it's going to be terrible. Then I heard from some people that it was great. Started reading it up to week 15, even though I'm 17 weeks now, and it's just not great. It's quite single-minded, unfortunately, about pregnancy, which a lot of books are these days. There's not much gender-neutral terms going on. There's not much sort of outside of mum gets pregnant, mum breastfeeds, dad does, just the basic dad stuff. God, I'm explaining this really terribly, but basically I don't think this is that educational. I think that with all the pregnancy apps that there are these days, and there's so much information on the internet, these types of books aren't that helpful. I mean, it is kind of like, I'm 15 weeks, I might just read some of the changes happening in my body. Yeah, it's fine for that, I guess. But everyone's body is different. One thing I've found with myself is that I'm actually popping out quite a lot earlier than other people. And that's because I'm really quite small and I have a short torso and long legs. So there's not really much space for the baby to grow up and in me. So it's just kind of coming out immediately. So, people say, oh, you're not supposed to show until at least 16 weeks. I popped out at 8 weeks. So there's a lot of discrepancies with what is discussed in these types of books and then what is the reality, which is everybody is different. Everybody's going to experience these things in different ways. And so, yeah, these books can be quite limiting in that sense. Now, a good book that I have found is Ina May Gaskin. This one, Birth Matters, is the one that I got given by a friend recently. This is just a beautiful book. It really dives into, I'm not that far through it yet, so I can't fully review it, but it dives into her experiences with birth and her hopes and aspirations for helping other women with their birth, and just educating women to know all about the medical side, all about the natural side, and to just sort of find out where you fit comfortably within those two areas. Whether you fit more in the natural, more in the medical, whatnot. I prefer to go natural with a lot of things. I am giving birth in a hospital. Well, that's the plan anyway. But I do prefer the idea of no interference and no medication unless extremely necessary. So that's just my choice. But I think it's really important for women to have the choices, to have the education and the knowledge to be able to make the choices about what they want to do for their birth, because birth is, as they say, the most intense experience of your lifetime. There's not much else that compares to giving birth to a baby, whether that's C-section or naturally or whatnot. I think that, FYI, I just spent about 4 or 5 minutes trying to look up a word that has sort of fallen out of my brain, and I didn't find it. But and I've lost track of what I was saying now. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think books like this are really helpful during pregnancy because it gives women the opportunity to take control and have authority over their body and what they experience throughout their childbirth. And I think, especially going into a hospital birth, you are going to have a lot of medical professionals there who know what to do quickly, but they don't really take into consideration explaining a lot of that to you as a patient, and they, I guess, assume that they don't have enough time and they need to get things done quickly, and so they just do things as they would without sort of giving you the control or the authority to say, wait a second, I don't want that, what are my choices? So yeah, educating yourself during pregnancy is a really good way to help get through that when you are in this situation. And one thing I will mention is that it's really good to have a birthing partner, whether that is your actual partner or a friend or a relative. But my husband is currently reading The Birth Partner. This is a really good book by Penny Simkin. Well, again, he hasn't finished it yet, but as far as I can tell, it's quite a good book. It's really educational for the person who isn't in labor, but who is with you throughout the whole thing, so that they have the knowledge and the vocabulary around birth to sort of break down what's going on at the time, discuss things with the midwives and the obstetricians and the doctors without being overwhelmed by, oh, what does that word mean? I don't know what they're doing to you. I don't know what the choices are here. If you've educated yourself with something like this book or audiobook or a podcast or a birth class, then you can feel like you're not in the dark in these situations when your partner is in labor, probably in another world in their own heads, and it's really difficult to communicate at that stage. So this is something I highly recommend. It's really helped my husband, and he's really been a great support, and I think that these types of things help him to know what to do for me and how to be there, and so I definitely recommend this one. I definitely recommend this one by Ina May Gaskin, or any of her books on birth and midwifery are all really apparently amazing. This is just the one I happened to pick up. Another book that I've been reading recently was given to me by a friend, and it's called Expecting Better. It's by Emily Oster, and this is a woman who is an associate professor of economics at the University of Chicago, and she has essentially put together a series of facts dispelling a lot of the myths about pregnancy and what you should and shouldn't be eating and doing. So she overturns standard recommendations for alcohol, caffeine, sushi, home birth, bed rest, miscarriage, and induction. It's called Why the Conventional Pregnancy Wisdom is Wrong and What You Really Need to Know. This has been an amazing anxiety relief for me. The first 6 weeks, or actually I think the first 8 to 10 weeks, I actually didn't drink coffee at all. I was so paranoid about potential miscarriage. Apparently if you drink coffee, you're more likely to miscarry, especially in the first trimester. So I just completely went cold turkey. As I mentioned in previous videos, I had extreme brain fog, which was a lot to do with the hormones, but also with coffee withdrawals. And so once I read this book, I slowly started drinking coffee again, and I found it actually made me feel a lot better. I have always had a coffee a day, my whole adult life. So getting back into that routine made me feel more myself. It put me back into a regular sort of me headspace, and I think that actually will benefit the baby, because anything you're feeling, whether it's, negative or positive, is going to affect the baby, because that's all chemical and it's all hormonal and it's all sort of in your body, and the baby is in your body. So this is a very non-scientific description of this, but she talks about it scientifically in here for you. So if you have any concerns about what I'm saying, definitely pick this book up. The other thing, which is quite controversial, is alcohol. I am definitely not recommending people drink while they're pregnant. I think that it's silly and dangerous. But if you are having one glass of wine every now and then, it's actually completely fine. If you are having one beer every now and then, that's also completely fine. They actually talk about having one drink a day is fine, as long as you do not go over that limit. And I think that the issue is, and please, I'm putting this in a public space, so I want to make it clear that I'm not condoning doing this. I am just discussing what they have said in this book and what I believe for myself. And I know a lot of doctors have said if you're smart about the amount of alcohol you consume, it shouldn't affect the baby. You should avoid straight spirits, you should avoid obviously drugs and all of those types of things. But I mean, a small glass of wine with a meal isn't going to do a lot, especially if you were drinking that type of amount pre-pregnancy. And I think that a lot of people don't understand how to limit themselves and control themselves when drinking and doing all sorts of things like this. So the easiest thing for medical professionals to do is just say don't drink, because you don't know how people are going to take that. Whether they're going to say, oh, it's fine, I'll just have another glass, and that could potentially affect the baby. So yeah, I'm a bit cautious about what I'm saying here. I'm worried that people are going to take me wrong, but what I am going to sum it up with is read this book. All the facts are in here. It's quite beneficial. I am not a drinking person while I'm pregnant, just putting that out there. But I don't think it's an issue if you do it in a smart way, in a smart sense. Don't know if that makes any sense. But yeah, this is a great book. Highly recommended. Now, another 2 books I have on hand that I haven't actually read yet are the Positive Birth book. I bought this one recently because I just thought it sounds like something that will help me stay positive, my mindset throughout the birth. So I'm just going to give it a go. It might be good, it might not be, but we'll soon see, and I'll review it for you. And the other one I was given is Hypnobirthing, and this is about getting into a hypnotic state during labour and during those intense pain periods, and sort of training yourself before the birth to be able to get to that place, so that when you are giving birth, it's easier to drop out of reality and drop into this calm sort of mental state. So it's supposed to be really good. I'm going to give it a go. I'm not planning on having a hypnobirth per se. We're actually going to be doing a calm birth class, because I think that's probably the best method for us, but I'm going to read this anyway and just see if there's any more insights in there for us. The other book I've been listening to is The Mama Natural Week by Week Guide to Pregnancy and Childbirth by Genevieve Howland. I'll put a picture here. This book I've been listening to on audio. Finding it pretty good. I've been listening to it on like 1.5 speed because she talks very slow and it's quite a long book. She sort of goes week by week. It's really helpful for me as a vegan and as like a healthy person, or I guess that you could say that, like someone that's sort of health conscious. It's quite helpful for me in terms of products to like that we are going to be buying, like prams and nappies and bibs and strollers and all of these things that you're just completely unfamiliar with. It discusses like chemicals to look out for, and she talks about, you know, the natural ways of dealing with pregnancy, and I just think it's quite good for people that are a bit more hippie leaning. So while some of the things I'm not as into, some of the things have been really helpful for me. So of all of the audiobooks I've tried to listen to, this is one of the best. And also comparing it to the Kaz Cook Up the Duff, and also What to Expect When You're Expecting, which is, in my opinion, the bottom of the worst of the worst. This is a much more enjoyable and nice approach to learning about my pregnancy week by week. So I do recommend that one. 2 more books I've read recently that I don't have with me. One is an audiobook called Positive Parenting by Jessica Ford, and this was just a really short, I think it was a couple of hours, sort of a description, not a description, an outline of the positive parenting method, which is something that my husband and I are quite into. So, you know, we're just sort of researching different parenting styles at the moment, and just to sort of wrap our head around what you do with a child, I guess, and how to raise them in the best way possible so that they can have, you know, all the good things in life without being too privileged at the same time. Sorry about that, my battery died. But yeah, I found Positive Parenting to be quite a good book. I gave it 3 stars. I think I'd like something a bit more in-depth and advanced than that, but it was a good starting point. One other thing I've read recently, which I haven't reviewed in my other videos, is The Motherhood by Jamila Rizvi. This was a collection of letters written by, I think, mostly Australian mothers. I think it was all Australian mothers, to themselves, later down the track, talking to themselves just after they'd given birth. Apparently, oh no, a fly. Apparently, like, I mean, it's quite clear that it's the most transitional period of your life, and it's really difficult, and you sort of come home with this baby and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing, and you don't have enough sleep, and you're breastfeeding for the first time, and it's just a whole, if that's what you choose to do, and it's just this, you're in this whirlwind, and it was really good listening to it. All the stories were quite different. To be honest, some of them were a little similar to the others, and I do think that because I'm not in that place at the moment, it wasn't as enjoyable as it would have been, or as beneficial as it would have been if I was in that phase of just having given birth. So I think it's something that I will revisit at that point in my life. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was good. I do recommend it for anyone else in that place at the time. But for me right now, it wasn't really what I needed to be reading. So yeah, I think we do need more resources for women who are pregnant, who are about to give birth, who have just given birth, for new mums. A lot of the books out there aren't great, and this is a good sort of example of things that we do need. So maybe there's a market out there for you. If you're watching this and you're a mother or a writer, write something for us. I'll read it. I've been like desperately searching for books based around motherhood, around having kids, fiction, non-fiction. I feel like I've devoured everything, even before I got pregnant. For example, Jessica Friedman's, what was that called? Things That Helped. Gosh, I can't think of any off the top of my head now. Megan O'Connell's And Now We Have Everything on Motherhood Before I Was Ready. That was an amazing book that I read earlier in the year. I gave that one 5 stars. There's a bunch I've read, and there's some really, really good ones out there, but I feel like I've hit a wall. I feel like I've come to the point where there's nothing left for me to read. So if you have recommendations on either fiction or non-fiction books that are in any way themed around motherhood, around having children, even just fiction books that are family-based, which have the perspective of a mother or a child, just like, a family drama sort of thing, that sort of revolves around that whole motherhood, parenthood aspect, I would love to know about it. Please recommend them down below. I know that I'm going to have a lot of time on my hands when I'm on maternity leave, and I'm going to be reading a lot as far as I know, unless I think I'm going to try and read as much as I can. So I'd love to just have a big resource of of titles that I can go to when I need something to read. So I'm going to make like a Goodreads shelf and start putting them all in there. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this one wasn't too boring. If you are pregnant, or if you've had a baby recently or a long time ago or whatnot, let's talk about it. I'm really keen on discussing this stuff at the moment. If you're not interested in any of those things, I'm not sure why you're watching this video, but it probably was really boring for you, and I'm sorry about that. But I'm probably going to do a few more of these, just because I know that it's something I would have loved to see a couple of months ago. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!